The snow fell relentlessly, swirling in icy gusts that made the old train station appear almost ghostly. The benches were deserted, save for a lone figure huddled in a thin coat, her shoulders shaking from the bitter winter wind. Emily Carter, a young nurse, had missed the last train back to her small town after a grueling night at the city hospital. The warmth of her workplace was a distant memory, replaced now by the harsh bite of winter. Her breath came in quick, visible puffs as she hugged herself, attempting to keep her body alive. Emily's life had always been one of duty and selflessness. She had come to the city to pursue her nursing career, to help those who couldn't help themselves. Love and companionship had never factored into her plans, until now, she found herself staring at a world that seemed uncaring and unfeeling. Each gust of wind tore at her resolve, and she realized she might not survive the night if she didn't find shelter soon. From across the platform, a figure approached on horseback. The rider was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence commanding even in the swirling snow. A dark hat shielded his face, and a long duster flapped against the wind as he rode. Daniel Hayes, a wealthy cowboy and owner of sprawling ranches across the Midwest, had business in the city. Though he was a man of considerable means, he preferred simplicity, horseback rides at dawn, the feel of the earth beneath his boots, and the quiet of starlit nights. As Daniel dismounted, his sharp eyes caught sight of Emily. He immediately noted her frailty in the cold, the thin coat, the trembling hands. Without a moment's hesitation, he strode toward her, the snow crunching under his heavy boots. "Miss, you shouldn't be standing here in this weather," he said, his voice deep and steady, carrying over the wind. Emily looked up, startled. Her cheeks flushed, partly from the cold, partly from embarrassment. I missed my train," she stammered. "There's nowhere to stay, and the streets are dangerous." Daniel nodded, removing his hat and revealing a shock of dark hair streaked with silver. "Come with me. My horse and carriage are outside. You'll be warm in no time." Though wary, Emily sensed a sincerity in his gaze. It wasn't the shallow charm of a socialite, it was raw, genuine concern. She allowed herself to be helped onto the carriage, her fingers brushing against his as he wrapped a heavy wool blanket around her shoulders. The warmth was immediate, searing through the frostbite that had begun to set in. As the carriage rattled through the city streets, Emily tried to make conversation. "Thank you, I don't even know your name." "Daniel Hayes," he replied with a faint smile. "And you are?" "Emily Carter." She hesitated. "I don't usually accept help from strangers." "Sometimes, Miss Carter," Daniel said, his eyes meeting hers, "strangers are exactly who you need." The carriage turned down a quieter street, leading to a grand but unpretentious manor. Daniel helped Emily inside, where a roaring fire awaited. She sank into an armchair, her body finally relaxing. It was the first time in hours she felt safe. Daniel studied her quietly, noting the exhaustion in her eyes and the tension in her shoulders. He didn't speak for a moment, letting her warmth sink in. Finally, he said, "You must be freezing. I have hot tea and a fire. You'll regain your strength." Emily felt a lump in her throat. The gesture was simple, yet profoundly touching. She had been so accustomed to caring for others that being cared for herself felt foreign, almost luxurious. That night, as the snow continued to fall outside, Emily realized she had entered a world she had never known, a world where kindness and attention weren't just fleeting gestures but a way of life. And for the first time, she felt a spark of curiosity about this man, and about what life might look like if she allowed herself to step into it. Over the next few days, Emily stayed at Daniel's manor. Though he was a millionaire, the house was warm and inviting, filled with rustic charm. Walls lined with leather-bound books, soft rugs, and the aroma of fresh-baked bread made her feel more at home than the tiny city apartment she had lived in for months. Daniel was insistent on her rest, and Emily quickly realized that, for all his wealth, he was deeply grounded. He didn't speak in platitudes or hollow compliments. He asked questions about her life, her work, her dreams. And in turn, Emily found herself opening up, sharing stories she hadn't told anyone, recounting the struggles of her patients, the sleepless nights, the small victories. Daniel listened, sometimes silently, sometimes offering insights that showed a wisdom she didn't expect from a man who lived in the rarefied world of ranches and boardrooms. "You carry more than most people realize," he said one evening as they watched the snow fall through the wide windows. "You shouldn't have to do it alone." Emily laughed softly, a sound almost foreign to her ears. "I've done fine so far." "Have you?" he asked, gently. "You're exhausted, running yourself ragged for others. You deserve, not just rest, but joy." There was a quiet intensity in his words that struck a chord in her. She had spent her life measuring her worth in the service of others, never imagining that she could allow herself to be cherished. Days turned into weeks. Daniel would accompany Emily to the hospital, ensuring she arrived safely before riding off on errands. He didn't flaunt his wealth or status, his presence was protective, unobtrusive, yet constant. Emily began to realize that what had started as gratitude was evolving into something more, a tentative fascination, a slow-burning attraction. One evening, as they walked along the snowy paths of his estate, Emily asked, "Why do you care so much about me? You barely know me." Daniel smiled softly. "I know enough. I know that someone like you, someone who gives everything to the world, shouldn't be left out in the cold." The words made her heart flutter. It wasn't flattery or charm, it was truth. And in that moment, Emily felt an unfamiliar warmth bloom, not just from the fire in the manor, but from the man beside her. Yet, even as she felt drawn to him, Emily remained cautious. The world had taught her that love was fragile, often fleeting. She wasn't sure she could allow herself to hope, or to trust. Their budding relationship was soon tested. Rumors of Daniel's wealth and influence spread quickly through the city, drawing unwanted attention. Socialites, journalists, and opportunists began making inquiries about Emily, speculating about her intentions. Emily found herself caught in a whirlwind of scrutiny she had never known, and the weight of public opinion pressed down on her like the snow that had first brought them together. One night, after a particularly harrowing day at the hospital, Emily returned to the manor to find Daniel waiting by the fireplace. His face was tense, his eyes troubled. "They're questioning you," he said, his voice low. "About us." Emily sank into a chair, exhausted. "I don't care what they think. I'm not with you for money." Daniel knelt before her, taking her hands. "I know, but the world doesn't see it that way. And I can't stand to see you hurt." The intensity of his gaze left her speechless. For the first time, she felt the true weight of what they were building, a connection so deep it transcended wealth, status, and society's expectations. They spent the night talking, sharing fears and hopes. Emily confessed her insecurities, her fear of losing herself in a life that wasn't entirely hers. Daniel admitted his own vulnerability, the loneliness he had masked behind wealth and authority. By dawn, the snow had stopped, leaving the world sparkling and renewed. And so too, their love had transformed, from admiration and gratitude to something far more enduring, mutual respect, deep understanding, and a quiet, unwavering passion. Months passed, and Emily and Daniel's love grew, steadfast and unshakable. Their story, once whispered in rumor, became celebrated in the press, not for wealth or scandal, but for the genuine bond that had developed between a selfless nurse and a wealthy cowboy. They proved that love was not about status, money, or circumstance, but about trust, care, and courage. Emily continued her work at the hospital, supported by Daniel in every way. He often remarked, half joking, "Saving lives suits you far better than boardrooms." She laughed, finally understanding that love didn't require abandoning who she was. Daniel's life changed too. He learned patience, empathy, and the joy of quiet moments. He discovered that the world of wealth and power was hollow without someone to share it with. When they married in a small, intimate ceremony on the ranch under a sky dusted with stars, the world took notice, not because it was a union of money and influence, but because it was a union of hearts. Neighbors, friends, patients, and employees celebrated the unlikely couple whose love had endured storms both literal and metaphorical. Emily and Daniel's story became legendary, a reminder that love could blossom in the coldest, harshest places, and that true partnership was a matter of heart, not circumstance. And every year, on the anniversary of that snowy night at the train station, they would ride together, hand in hand, remembering how a chance encounter had changed everything, and how their love had made history.